morning here in verse 9. And we're going to look at the reactions of the various groups of people living on the earth as Babylon is being destroyed. And we're going to see a common thread until we get to the point where we see what heaven's response is to this. And so, verse 9, we see the response of the kings of the earth. The kings of the earth, verse 9, who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her, will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. So this is a description of perhaps the most powerful men on the face of the earth during this period of time. And notice what their reaction is to the burning of their empire. Right? They're reduced to sniveling babies, if you will. Right? Their mentality here has come to the place where everything that they have invested their lives in, everything that they have committed to, that they have promised, that they have set their sights upon, the satisfaction in their life, where they draw their self-worth, is being destroyed before their very eyes, and their only response is to weep, to openly weep. The description that's being used here is a wailing. It is a convulsing. And I believe as a result of the fact that they realize that they put their eggs in the wrong basket. And it wasn't just a few of them. They put them all in this basket, and they thought that they could thumb their nose at God, and they thought they could establish their own system and way of doing things. And God reveals to them in a moment that everything that they had believed in was a lie. Right? It was a trap. We'll learn here in a little while that it's sorcery, it's deception, it's a hallucination. Right? It's not reality. And the problem is they are so deceived into believing that the power structure of the world, what brings the greatest satisfaction, is materialism. The worship of self, the worship of things, the worship of anything, except for the one and the true living God. And notice here that they're standing, verse 10, at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, the mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. Right? So not only do they see this destruction, but they're also shocked at how quickly that it's destroyed. Right? Imagine this incredible, beautiful city, metropolis that they have built. Right? This infrastructure that has gone into this place, and it's the marvel of the world. And within a moment, I mean, how long does it take to build? How magnificent? How much money? How much manpower does it take to build a city like this? And God declares in a moment that it's over. And they're shocked at this. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 34 says this, Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. You see, God declares that it's righteousness that exalts a nation. It's righteousness that gives us our worth. It's righteousness that declares our value to God. And anything apart from that separates us from Him, that causes a relationship that is distant, that where we're not worshiping Him, that's a reproach. And so when we look at this economic system that declares that greatness is found in wealth, it's found in material things, it's found in all kinds of the physical things of this world, is of no value when it comes to eternity and the things that really matter. In our nation today, it's really amazing how applicable it is to be in these chapters in Revelation and living in the world that we live in today. One of the common sayings that we hear in our political climate today is that we're going to make America great again. Right? And it isn't just from our president. It's coming from both sides of the aisle, just kind of packaged a little bit differently. But the idea is we want to make America great again. And part of making that nation great in the eyes of our politicians, in the eyes of the kings of the United States, if you will, and it's not just isolated to America, but it's based on a couple of things. One is the economy, right? We'll make America great by making its economy great. We'll make America great by reestablishing and building up our military. We will make America great and established again as a world power by giving everyone health care, premium health care that affords people to be well. And when we look at those on the surface and we say, there's nothing wrong with those. Those are good things that we should desire as a nation. The problem is, America will never be great again until America gets back to the roots in which this nation was founded upon. Right? And it doesn't matter what our economy does, and it doesn't matter how strong our military is. You see, this nation was founded on the righteous principles of God. And any nation that is established, any system of government that is established that is outside of that framework for which God established nations to be built is destined for destruction. Right? And it's a pipe dream to think that we will truly be great again apart from the righteousness that God has declared for us. This nation is about to fragment, right, into a million different pieces. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on out there, right? And everybody knows it. It's just like a tinderbox, right, waiting to explode, waiting to erupt. And every day you kind of, if you don't trust in God, and you don't believe what the Bible says, I feel sad for you because you're an anxious wreck. You're afraid to turn on the television and listen to the news because you don't know what's going to happen, right? Not just because you can't stand it anymore, because there's fear and terror, right? And any time that we place the economy or our military or our healthcare as the platform for our success, we're setting the bar way too low, right? Because it's righteousness that exalts a nation. To make America great again, America needs to be righteous. America needs to seek after righteousness. And for the kings of the earth here, they were fooled. They drunk of the wine of her fornication. They were drunk. They were living in an altered state of reality to think that the material things of this world could bring satisfaction and bring true prosperity to a people. And when it all came crumbling down, they just couldn't believe it. Why? Because they had been duped so badly. And that is the world that we're living in today. That's what our neighbors think. That's what our local governments think. That's what the people that we love and care about who do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ are believing about this world today. But you and I know the truth. And we know the hope that is here for this country, but it's not going to be found in making America great through the economy, through our military, and through our health care. It's going to be found when people repent and fall upon their knees and worship God. The next group of people that we see mourning are the merchants. It says in verse 11, "And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore." When I read that, I just kind of go, nobody's buying our stuff anymore. Right? It's just kind of this, right? I mean, what are they whining over? Right? Their income is gone. Their wealth is being depleted. And we look at that and we go, well, too bad. Now you know how it feels. Right? But there's more going on here, right? Because in verse 12 and 13, we see the picture of the kind of lifestyle that not only were they living, but they were encouraging the people to live in. And this isn't just a bare minimum existence. This isn't just scraping by, right? This is an economy that we don't even have any idea as to the prosperity of the economy that's going on during this period of time. Notice the lavishness here. When we read through this, now some of this stuff may be time sensitive, where back then it would have been luxurious and lavish, and we would look at that and go, well, that's not all that great today. But if you translate that into some of the excess and wealth that we experience today, the high-end shopping centers or the high-end things that you can buy that most of us don't really can relate to here. But this is what's being described here, this high-end kind of living here. The merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple, silk and scarlet, every kind of citron wood, every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, and cinnamon and incense, fragrant oil and frankincense, wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, right? Just incredible wealth here. And you know what? It's a seduction, right? And it's a seduction because it is a insatiable appetite that's being fed here. It can't possibly maintain itself. It's a hunger that just keeps going and going and going and going without end, right? And it's a testimony to how insatiable an appetite for materialism can be. Right? We've experienced it before. I've shared with you the story of our camping history. where we were first began camping in a tent, right? And how we loved it and we couldn't have been any happier until we saw everybody else in these pop-ups and these other, when it was raining, they weren't getting wet and they had a bathroom that they could go to inside their camper. And we thought, camping would be great. I mean, we loved it, but boy, it'd really be great if we had one of those, right? So we got one of those. We got one of those bigger, better kind of campers, and we were happy as could be. We had that thing set up. We're roasting our weenies over the fire, and next thing, the earth starts rumbling, and around the corner comes Winnebago. Right? And it's like, boy, if I just had that, I would really be happy camping, right? And so I don't have one of those things that rumbles right now, but I do have a really large camper right now that I really enjoy. But anyway, it's that insatiable appetite, right? I had a friend who came to me one day, and he had gotten saved, radically saved. And he was going through this period of time where he was kind of just wondering about how long it could last. Because he was really excited about the things of the Lord and just wanting to tell everybody about Jesus and just excited about those things. And he comes to me one day and he goes, Mark, I'm just afraid it's another one of these fads in my life. He goes, a few years ago, it was the Buffalo Bills. And I said, well, I told you that wouldn't have lasted. Right? He says, I was just in love with the Bills. He wear those Zumba pants, right? Anybody got? You got some. I know you got some. Yeah. And he would wear them everywhere, right? These Bills Zumba pants. And he just, just crazy. He was just on fire for everything Bills, and his whole life was surrounded around the Bills. And then that kind of grew old after a while, as most Bills fans would understand. And he became a fan of NASCAR, right? Just into NASCAR like crazy, wearing all the Jeff Gordon stuff, and going to the races, and just consumed with NASCAR and stuff. And then, shortly after that, he gets saved, right? And then all of a sudden, NASCAR, man, that's meaningless, right? It was pointless. Left turn, left turn, left turn, left turn, right? It was going nowhere. It was just circles, right? It was worthless, right? And so he decided Jesus Christ is the way. And see, where he was going with this was, is this going to last? Right? Is all of a sudden this Jesus thing going to grow old after a while? Right? Like these materialistic pursuits that he was after, or that we find ourselves after. But you see, the difference, what I told him was the difference was he was now pursuing the one thing that God had created him to do. You see, until you are engaged in the activity for which God created you to do, you will never be satisfied. And if you're finding your current satisfaction in material things and in worldly things, you are never going to be satisfied until you fill your life with the one thing that God has created you to do, and that is to worship him with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Now, it doesn't mean you can't like the Bills. It doesn't mean you can't like NASCAR. It doesn't mean you can't have shoes and dresses and jewelry and things like that. But when they are what consume you, when they are what are your master passion and drive you, you will never be satisfied. You see, God created you to worship him. And once you're engaged in that activity, and it becomes the primary focus of your life, then you start realizing what God has for you and the depth of the riches that come in a relationship with Jesus Christ that you will never find in the riches of this world, no matter how valuable they may appear. Now notice here, and I stopped purposely before I got to the last part of verse 13. But notice the merchants of the earth, right? Verse 11, they're weeping, they're mourning, right, over all of these things. But notice what else here. It says, and the bodies and the souls of men. To these men, to these merchants, to these people that would make a wealthy living off of people, they saw people as just fuel to power their economic machine. Right? They were of no value to them apart from what they could offer materialistically to them. So they're just another one of these things that means nothing. People were expendable. They were things in order to keep the operation alive. They treated people like animals in this day, right? And like they were people with no souls or no purpose in their lives, right? And what was the purpose? Purpose of a human life is to love God and to love your neighbor. And Jesus declared that these were the encapsulation of the entire law and the prophets, was to love God, and yet these merchants viewed them as a product or something to be sold. In this world that we live in today, human life is cheapened to the point where slavery, even today, right, slavery sex slavery, sex sales, right, are used to raise the economy or to increase wealth. Right? The slave trade, we read about it almost weekly now, right, where they're stopping a tractor trailer and they're finding 10, 20, 30, 100 people stuffed into the back of a tractor trailer. And where are these people going? They're going to be used for laborers. They're going to be, some of them are used for sex trafficking. Right? All of this kind of thing going on, and this is the mentality here of the merchants during the end. People were not people; people were to be used. They were to be consumed, right? And so they're viewed as some kind of a commodity, and that's what they're weeping over. They're not weeping over a lost soul. They're not weeping over a human being who has family and feelings and a heart that God created for the purpose of worshiping Him. There's no desire. There's no intent in any of that. So here we see the heart behind them. It's money, money, money. Verse 14. The fruit of your soul long for has gone, or the fruit that your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. For the merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment. They will be weeping and wailing and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Came to nothing in a moment. Turn with me to, and this is, I love using biblical examples because without fail, they're timeless. But turn to Luke chapter 12. You're probably familiar with this. It's a story of the rich fool. And what greater illustration of all of this wealth coming to nothing at a moment than this story here in Luke chapter 12, verse 13. Jesus is settling a dispute between two guys who are arguing over an inheritance. Right? They're worried about money. They're worried about their future success in a material sense. And verse 13 says, Then one from the crowd said to him, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. But he said to him, Man, who made me a judge or an arbitrator over you? And he said to them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of things that he possesses. And so to illustrate this fact, he then tells them a parable, verse 16. And he spoke a parable to them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man yielded plentiful. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? And so he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will store all my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, Fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will these things be which you have provided? So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. See, in a moment, the things that we lay up, the things that we consider to be valuable, the things that we consider to be our source of strength and our source of worth can be taken from us in a moment. A fire, a storm, a thief, right? Health. All of these things can rob us of a material wealth in this world, but nothing can steal a soul that has been given to the Lord Jesus Christ, or to God through faith in Jesus Christ and loving Him. It is an invaluable possession that extends far beyond the materialistic world that we live in today. And so when these men are lamenting all of these things, that what they forgot to realize was it didn't mean anything because it'd be gone in a moment. But they were blinded to the reality of that the existence goes far beyond the things that we own. And it wasn't just them, because even the shipmasters, second part of verse 17, every shipmaster, all who traveled by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea, they stood at a distance, and they cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? Right? This was the ultimate picture here, right? Because verse 19 says they threw dust and ashes, or dust on their heads, and they cried out, weeping and wailing. and saying, Alas, alas, the great city in which all who had ships, or all who had ships on the sea, became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she was made desolate. The ultimate picture of grief was sackcloth, was throwing dust on their heads. It was a very demonstrative act of grief and mourning in this culture. And so to see these ship merchants, these wealthy men who had made an incredible living, are now in sackcloth and throwing dust upon their heads. It's an incredible image of this, of their placing their God in the wrong place, right? Because what were they valuing? The city. They looked at this incredible marvel of a city, and they said, that is worthy of being worshipped. That is worthy of our praise. That is worthy of every ounce of our attention. And yet we've learned from the scripture, and maybe we've learned practically, right, that to worship the creation, apart from worshiping the Creator, is foolish. Why would you worship a city when you know behind that city is a builder, is someone who designed it, is someone who made that? The city is not worthy of worship. It's the creator of that city, and the marvel and the engineering. And when you translate that to it in a spiritual sense, why would we worship anything out here that can be created when we have direct access to the creator of all things, the designer of all these things? And it's foolishness. Now, in verse 20 through the end, we see what heaven's response to all of this is. See, because God looks at this a lot different than the world does. It says, Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you, holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Right? It's like heaven breaks out the fiddle and goes, whoa. Right? That's not really what happens, right? Right? No, he says to rejoice, because God is going to avenge all of those who were crushed for standing up for righteous principles. You know, sometimes we get tired, don't we? I mean, it feels like we're the only voice in our family. We're the only one who brings a godly perspective into the conversation, or into the discussion of politics, you know, or what's happening in our world today. We're the only ones. And as a result of that, we get beaten down and we're tired. But here God says he will avenge that. He will avenge those who have been devoured by those who are consumed in living a materialistic kind of life. And notice in verse 21 that a mighty angel took up a stone, like a great millstone, and threw it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down, and it shall not be found anymore. Right? What is he communicating here? It's gone forever. This system, when God destroys this commercial Babylon, it will never be a part of the human condition ever again. Say amen to that. When is that day coming, Lord? Right? He's communicating that it will be, their end will be complete, and it will be final. Notice the imagery here. It's a millstone. It's a great stone, and it's thrown into the water, right? And it disappears from sight forevermore. You know, my grandsons, maybe you've experienced this too, one of their favorite things in the entire world to do is to throw rocks in the water, right? If I don't know what to do with them for any period of time, or I just need to, you know, get a little mental break and just kind of watch, I just take them to a pond or a creek, somewhere where they can get their hands on some rocks and throw them into the water, because they will do it for hours. But one of the things that I noticed when they throw that rock in the water is, first of all, when the rock first hits that water, there's this great ripple effect, right? It stretches out, and we see the imagery here of this millstone being thrown into the water, this great city being thrown, and the effects are far-reaching. The kings, the merchants, the shipmasters, they're all affected by this. But then do you notice once that rock goes down into the water, what happens? You see it no more. When my grandsons, they find the biggest rock they can find, right? I mean, they can barely pick this thing up, you know, and they throw it as far as they can, but in a moment, it's completely gone. You can't find it anymore. And that's the imagery that's being established here, that God will take this system and he will destroy it. The ripple effects will go on throughout humanity, the existence of humanity at this point, but there will be a time when it is gone and completely gone. And it says that the sound of the harpist, musicians, flutists, trumpeters, they shall be heard no more. Right? The old eat, drink, and be merry, those days are over for the earth. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you anymore. Right? The gears of industry will come screeching to a halt. Nothing will be being made. Nothing will be being consumed. And the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you anymore, and the light of a lamp shall not shine on you anymore. The prosperity, the light of their prosperity will be extinguished, no longer to enslave mankind. And the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you anymore. There will be no more making merry in weddings. There will be no more celebration, right? Isn't that the idea behind a wedding? You know what? I tell people all the time, not that I want to do funerals, because obviously there's loss and there's suffering there, but as a pastor, I would rather stand before a group of people who are mourning at a funeral than those that are celebrating at a wedding. The only reason that I say that is because at a funeral, people want to know what I have to say. People are hurting. People need someone to speak into the hurt in their life and the pain and the uncertainty of the future, and so they're listening. But when I do a wedding, nobody's listening. They're like, is he done yet? Right? So we can get to this party, right? I mean, that's what people want. They want to be at that party. They want to be in there. And so here, all of that is gone. No longer is there going to be any kind of party. They're making of merry. Their industrial lives are over, right? They're cooking and they're baking. All of those things, they're all gone forever. Verse 23, the second part of verse 23. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. Now listen to this. Why was all of these things happening? Why did God bring all of this to a screeching halt? And here's the answer. Because they made the merchants the great people of the world. Does it sound familiar what's happening today? Can you answer me this question? Why do we care one iota about what the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, thinks about this world today? Why do we pay attention to him? Do you know what his motivation is? His only motivation is to make money, right? And so when he speaks out about anything, whether it's political, whether it's entertainment-wise, whether it's about, he is motivated by money. What about the CEO of Ford? Same thing, right? Jim Hackett. Him and a bunch of other guys, they quit a board designed to help improve our economy, right? And what are they saying? What is the reason that they're leaving these boards? Oh, because they don't agree with the right side viewpoints, but you know what they're doing in all of this? This is what they've done. They went like this, and stuck their finger in the air, and they started seeing which way the winds were blowing, in the world, and the viewpoints are happening in the world, and they decided, you know what, if we're going to keep our business functioning and keep making the wealth, we better agree with this side. So we better distance ourselves from this side. And it isn't just right and left. It's happening everywhere. So why do we care? Why do we exalt these guys as men who we should establish our lives after? And it isn't just them. Why do we care what Bon Jovi thinks? Why do we care what Madonna thinks? Am I the only one that looks at this and goes, who cares what you think? Right? But that's what happened. This is what's marking the culture that God is ultimately going to judge when they make the merchants, when they make the entertainers their gods and those that are in control, instead of the voices of righteousness. What are the voices that are being silenced? The churches, those that are speaking up for morality and righteousness and fair treatment of people, right? And it's crazy what we're involved in. It's crazy the things that we take as an authoritative, or people that we listen to. The reality shows. And I know I'm probably about on the meddling point here, right? But to consume ourselves with these reality shows, what a waste of time. Honey Boo Boo, the Kardashians, Bachelor, Bachelorette, Survivor. Thank God for sports. Okay, all right. Man, talk about not redeeming the time. How consumed can I be in these foolish pursuits? And again, look, all these things are not wrong, right? But when we allow them to become what dominates our thinking or what dominates our perspective in the world. We're exalting men above the principles of God. We're exalting the merchants, and we're making them our gods and our kings. And God says, I can't allow that to go on. And what he won't allow for a nation, and what he won't allow for a world, he most certainly won't allow for his people. Right? And so there has to be that sense of relationship with him. Turn with me, and we'll close here in Matthew chapter 16. This just kind of sums up the whole chapter 18, I think. Chapter 16, Matthew chapter 16, verse 26. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world? Think about that. What if God gave you everything? And you had it all. Your neighbor, they had nothing. You got it all. Everything that you could possibly get, you got it. What does it gain if you gain the whole world and you lose your soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. What is your soul worth? Is your soul worth a new car, a bigger house, a bigger boat, a bigger camper? Your sports team winning the World Series? Your favorite singer going number one on the charts? What if you had all of that? What if you owned everything, but you missed heaven? It declares here, Jesus is declaring here in Matthew, that if you make that choice, if you decide that the things of the world and the possessions of the world are greater than your soul, you have made the most tragic decision and mistake that you will ever make. Because eternity is a long, long stuff. It's a drug. It's an hallucinogenic. It deceives us. And don't think for a moment that it won't or it can't, because we're all susceptible to it. But in our pursuit of our relationship with God, we will find the greatest satisfaction. You will find that you will be rich beyond measure in that pursuit. That God will provide for you things that you never even knew you wanted. And when you get them, you'll think they're the greatest thing in the entire world, because God provided them for you, and they are not the master passion or pursuit of your life, because God brings them to you and allows you to enjoy them, because your master passion is Him and His Son, Jesus Christ. And if you're in this room this morning and you don't know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're in this place where you're at the verge of trading your eternity for some stuff, or some things that the world has to offer that the Bible says is just perishing. It's stuff that rust and moths destroy, and thieves break in and steal. There's of no value to them eternally. There's no value beyond this life. And so if you don't know Jesus Christ this morning, you've exchanged the things of this world for what God truly intended for you in your life. And our prayer this morning is that you would examine that and see in your spirit if that be true. And trust in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior this morning. If you haven't done that this morning, or yet, I offer you to do that this morning. Put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ. To realize that the world and the profits and the things of the world are nothing compared to an eternity spent with Jesus Christ, spent with God, fulfilling the purpose for which God created you to do. Does it mean that your life will be easy? Does it mean everything will be wonderful? No, it doesn't mean that. But it'll mean there'll be a contentedness, that there'll be a peace that goes beyond your understanding of the things of this world, that will make you the richest person on the face of the earth. And not just for today, but for tomorrow and all the way into eternity. So if you pray with me this morning, God, we thank you for the reality that this passage brings to our lives. We thank you for the sobering reminder of the future that awaits a world that is possessed, literally, demonically possessed in their pursuit of riches and wealth, and materialism, apart from the relationship with you, apart from desiring the true riches, the riches that come from a contentedness, a peaceful heart, and knowing that I am pursuing the one thing that I have been created for, and that is a relationship with you, God. And God, I pray for anyone in this room this morning that does not know you. I pray that they would examine their heart and their lives and then see that the pursuit of these things does not bring peace and happiness. That they would seek the one true thing that would bring the greatest satisfaction to them. God, I pray if there's anyone in this room this morning that does not know you, they would give their heart to you this very moment. That they would desire the true riches, the fulfillment of knowing, fulfillment of having a relationship with you, for being for the first time in their life engaged in the purpose for which you created them for, and that is to worship you, and to experience the fullness that comes with that relationship. I'm so thankful, God, that you saved me. I'm thankful that you delivered me. Maybe not completely. Sometimes I struggle, Lord. But Lord, to come to the place where I realize that you are the only thing that satisfies. I'm truly grateful for that, and I know that this congregation is grateful for that as well. And it's to you we give the glory this morning. I love you, God. I praise you. I give you all the honor and glory. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Strong and perfectly, a great high priest whose name is love, whoever lives and pleads for me. My name is graven on his hands, my name is written on his heart. I know that while in heaven he stands, no tongue can bid me thence depart. No tongue can bid me thence depart. When Satan tempts me to despair and tells me of the guilt within, upward I look and see him there, who made an end to all my sin. Because the sinless Savior died, my sinful soul is counted free. For God the just is satisfied to look on him and pardon me, to look on him and pardon me. I see him there, the risen man, perfect, spotless righteousness, the great unchangeable I am, the King of glory and of grace. One with himself, I cannot die. My soul is purchased by his blood. My life is hid with Christ on high, with Christ my Savior and my God, with Christ my Savior and my God. Because the sinless Savior died, my sinful soul is counted free. For God the just is satisfied to look on him and pardon me, to look on him and pardon me. Let's stand. me now that you have saved me, Lord. I give all that I am to you every day. I can be a light that shines on me every day. It's you I live for every day. I follow after you every day. I walk with you, my Lord. Every day, Lord, I'll learn to stand up on your word and pray that I might come to know you more. You guide me in every single step I take. Every day I can be a light unto the world every day. It's you I live for every day. I follow after you every day. I walk with you, my Lord. It's you I live for. It's you I live for every day. It's you I live for every day. It's you I live for every day. Sing that again. It's you I live for. It's you I live for every day. You I live for every day. It's you I live for every day. Every day it's you I live for. 'Cause every day it's you I live for every day. I follow after you every day. I walk with you, my Lord, every day. It's you I live for every day. I follow after you every day. I walk with you, my Lord.
Oh God, that's our anthem this morning, every day, that we will follow after you, that we will live our lives for you, because you are the only one worth pursuing. Thank you for that truth. Thank you for that reality this morning, and we ask you to take us into this world that so desperately needs to hear the truth of what the future in pursuit of materialistic success will result in. Lord, we know that truth. So help us to be the ambassadors. Help us to be the difference makers in this world as we proclaim the love that we have for Jesus Christ to the world that so desperately needs you. And we give you the praise and the glory this morning in Jesus' name. Amen. We have a great week. God bless you.
Thank you.
Going to my